Okay, we're going to be covering dark rooms, and the viewing conditions is going to be in a second PowerPoint. This darkroom lecture is from your quality management book from Jeffrey Papp, and it's chapter 3. There are two different ways to process radiographic film. There's the darkroom and a daylight processor. The darkroom has a film bin, it has a feeding tray, a Passbox, and is totally dark with the safe light. A daylight processor is kind of like our little readers that we have for our CRs. It empties and loads the cassette and runs the film through a developer. So a darkroom has a safe light, an entrance, a Passbox, and ventilation. So that's the most important thing. You hear some old radiologists call it a wet room, and that's because we used to hand dip the films and hang them to dry. If you hear the word wet reading, this is where it came from. They used to hang the films up, and the radiologist would come in and read it while it was still wet, while the film was drying. So, darkroom entrances. There's single door, double interlocking doors, there's revolving doors, and the light-proof maze. This is a picture of the revolving door. You stand in the middle, and the opening is open there. You spin it around, and it opens on the other side, so no light is brought into the darkroom. The light maze, it's not very common, but I wanted to show you how it worked. You just come in, you can see the light getting darker and darker and darker till there's no more light and coming out. But as you can see, it takes up a lot of room, and per square foot, we don't have that kind of room in radiology. So the darkroom is to protect the film from visible light, any kind of ionizing radiation, excessive heat and humidity, and that's for static electricity. You want to keep the film from getting pressure marks, and you want to ventilate so that the chemicals don't build up on the film. Latencyfication. So what happens is film is 2 to 8 times more sensitive once it's been exposed. So a film that hasn't been exposed is not as sensitive to a film that has been exposed. So the already exposed film is 2 to 8 times more sensitive than it was before it was exposed to any other radiation that comes after. So really important to protect that film once it's been exposed until it gets processed. So the darkroom must prevent fogging. So fog, what's fog? Fog is it's density to your film that takes away your detail. So we're going to talk about that once we get to film. So static, being down here in Southern California with the Santa Ana winds, we have to deal with static. Static electricity is just a part of the job, and there's ways to reduce it. So we use a certain type of countertops, we use rubber floor mats, and everything is grounded. And when we are pulling a film out of the film bin, we need to pull it out nice and slow. If we pull it out fast, it's going to create static electricity, and it's going to expose your film, and we'll show you what those artifacts look like when we get to film. Also, when you're pulling film out of the cassette, it sticks to the screen, intensifying screen, and it'll cause static when you pull it out, so you have to be careful. You got to move a little slower. We try to keep the humidity between 30 and 60%. Very important that you know that those numbers right there. It's going to be on your test. And you need to clean the screens, the intensifying screens, with anti-static cleaner. So the darkrooms need to be ventilated, and we do that to remove heat and humidity. Humidity, if it's too humid in there, the films will stick together. We also want to reduce darkroom disease, which you will read the article here. So reduces exposure to potentially hazardous chemicals. So the processor has chemicals that are harmful to your health. And you need to have 8 to 10 room changes of air per hour. Now the temperature should be between 65 and 75 degrees within the darkroom. So the chemicals need to be ventilated to the outside of the building. A lot of people did the ventilation into the work area for the technologists, and we were still getting sick. You are not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to smoke in the darkroom. So you got to keep it nice and clean. Make sure you don't put lotion on before you touch film. You'll wipe the emulsion right off. You have to be careful using the film. It's very sensitive to anything touching it. So, water and drainage of a darkroom. Conventional film processors require a supply of cold water. Newer units have heaters, so older units, they had to have hot water coming into the system. The newer units have heaters. Our unit has a heater, so you'll see that we do not have to supply hot water to it. And it must have adequate drainage of 10 gallons per minute. Very important. You need to know that the 10 gallons per minute for the drainage. So, storage space. Film, it's usually in a film bin and it's stored upright. That's how you want to store all film. It needs to be stored upright. So if it's not in a film bin, it's going to be in boxes that are standing up. So what happens is if you lay them down and you stack them on top of each other, you're going to get pressure marks and you're going to have to throw away your box of film. So nothing is allowed to be placed on top of the films, and open film boxes are usually placed within the film bin so that there is no light exposure to the film. The film bin is light proof, and they go within slots. I'll show you here. So here's the film bin, and 14 by 17, 11 by 10, 10 by 12, 8 by 10. There's slots for each of those with the film within the box. You just take the lid off so you can grab the films out real quick. And this one is a mammography one, I believe. It's got smaller slots. You can see how deep this one is for the 14 by 17s. And here it says typically the film storage is 55 to 75 degrees. The darkroom is 65 to 75. Film is preferred 55 to 75. In that film bin, it's within that. So if I ask you what the temperature of the darkroom should be, it's going to be 65 to 75. I'm going to say preference for film is 55 to 75. So your chemicals are going to be between 40 and 80 degrees. Your developer is sensitive to any kind of light. You need to be careful on disposal of your chemicals. They contain hazardous materials within them. We can't just dump it down the sink, and they are usually good for about 12 months. So Passboxes. This is what a Passbox looks like. You've probably seen them in your department and wondered what the heck they were. So this is a Passbox. The way a Passbox works is someone's in the darkroom and you are on the outside coming out of a workroom. So you take your film once it's exposed, and this handle, there's a handle right here, lines up. You can open up the door. You're going to put your film inside this Passbox. Once you do that, you're going to turn the handle so the handle goes this way. What that does is it locks it so the other side, they can open it up. It looks exactly like this. They're going to open it up so it's straight, just like this. And they're going to pull out the exposed cassette with film. They're going to run it for you in the dark room. And once they're done reloading it, they're going to put it back in the unexposed side and turn the handle this way so that you can pull the unexposed film out and use it for your next exam. So the darkroom walls, typically we paint them in light colors. You can't paint them in dark colors because it's too dark in the darkroom with the dark color. You would also think you want some kind of enamel, so you have some kind of shine to help with the reflective of the light, but you don't. You want it to be matte finish because the reflection is actually too much and will fog your film. So we use a matte finish with light colors. If you're next to a radiation room or a nuclear medicine department, you're going to have to put lead in that wall, or else it's going to fog your film, because as you recall, I said earlier, once the film has been exposed, it's 2 to 8 times more sensitive than it was before it was exposed. So it's really, really sensitive once it gets to that darkroom to be ran. So lighting within the darkroom. There's conventional overhead lighting, just like you would have in a normal department. And there's a safe light, which emits a color to which particular types of film have no sensitivity. It has some sensitivity. I shouldn't say no sensitivity. It has some, so you have to be careful still. Overhead lighting. We turn on the switch for cleaning, maintenance, and emergencies. Usually, if the film bin's open, it won't let you turn the overhead light on. Okay, so it's got a lock mechanism where you can't turn on the light if the film bin's open. There's also usually an alarm on the film bin to remind you not to turn on the light or to open the door. So even the best safe light emits some light. We're going to talk about that in your 121 class. in the electromagnetic spectrum, light contains all colors. So a laser beam is the only one that contains just the one color. So even though we have what's called a safe light, it's important not to leave the film bin open for too long or leave your film out before you process it, because it will fog your film. So your latencyfication is 40 seconds within the safe light, or you'll start to fog your film. So most safe lights are mounted 3 to 4 feet from the feeding tray of your processor. So blue-violet sensitive film is the most common. That's what we have. So sensitive to blue, indigo, and violet. We use an amber-colored safe light. So you can use a red, orange, or some yellow. And the Kodak 6BX filter, it's for green, blue, X-ray film. So it's a dark red, low intensity, 7 through 15 watt, and we keep it typically 4 feet from the work area. And we do that because the film is so sensitive and it will fog it. All right. The RADT Series 6B, we call it the RADT 6B. It's an orange-brown or amber filter. It's safe for the blue-violet film. This is what we have in our darkroom, and this is the most common safe light I've seen. It's a fixture type. You'll see it mounted up in our darkroom. Take a look at it. So a safe light left on for more than 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, needs to have a filter changed out or annually. It's important that that gets changed out, because if the filter goes bad, you're going to start fogging all your films. So too many safe lights, if you have 2 or 3 safe lights to help with seeing things in the darkroom, you're going to be fogging your films. You need to be careful that you use a light color to increase the light reflection and make it easy to locate your films without having shiny surfaces. This is a sodium vapor lamp. Some of the darkrooms have these. If you find the old darkroom at your facility, take a look at it. You'll see them hanging. This is hung from the ceiling. There's a chain so you can adjust how much light it gives off. Here's a newer model there. This is a LED. They're very expensive, but they last a long time. So that's the positives and the negatives. So it's a diode, light emitting diode, and it uses low electrical power and lasts up to 15 years. It's pretty good. So to check for light leaking in your darkroom, what you're going to do is you're going to go in and you're going to turn out all the lights, shut all the doors, and stand there for 5 minutes. Let your eyes adjust. Observe all darkroom areas for light entering and repair those light leaks if necessary. So our darkroom, I guarantee, has a lot of light leaks. Take a look at it and see if you can fix them so you don't fog your films while you're running them. Turn the lights on and check the temperature, look at your feed tray, make sure it's okay, and the counters for cleanliness, and make sure they're in good condition. We don't have a counter, but at your facilities you'll still see some dark rooms that are set up. So duplicating films, we used to have to make copies. So we go into the darkroom. It's a special unit that we'd use. I'll show you a picture of it here next. And it should faithfully copy your densities up to 2.5. It never was quite right, but it worked. QC tests involve copying an existing sensitometer and checking to make sure that it's within the values. Steps should have optical densities within 0.02 of each other. So this is it here. This is your film duplicator. So we go in, we put the chest x-ray down, and we put a copy film on top, and then we turn the dial to however much we thought it would need, and then we'd expose it to light. And that light, we'd take it and we'd put it into the feed tray and process it through the processor. So your next PowerPoint will be on viewing conditions.